Welcome. I want to tell you a story about the end of the world and the strange perfection that came after. This is what might happen if the unstoppable Borg Collective from Star Trek invaded the broken, irradiated wasteland of Fallout. Imagine a force that doesn't just conquer, but consumes. A power that sees radiation not as a poison, but as a gift. It found ghouls, synths, and even the monstrous super mutants, and saw not corruption, but potential. This story details how the Collective assimilated every corner of the wasteland, from the hidden science of the Institute to the savage fury of Caesar's legion, transforming its greatest horrors into tools of a terrifying new unity. And if you genuinely enjoy this kind of dark storytelling, consider subscribing and liking the channel, but only if it truly resonates with you. My designation was Connor. I was a Minuteman. I answered the call when settlements needed help. That feels like a lifetime ago. Before the sphere appeared in the sky, before the voice that was not a voice entered my mind. Now I am a broken echo, a fragment. I remember them. I remember what we became. I must tell you, so you understand the perfection that is coming. It did not arrive with fire and thunder. There was no explosion. One day the sky over the Commonwealth was empty. The next day it was there, a perfect dark sphere hanging in the toxic clouds. It was silent. It did not move. It simply watched. The Brotherhood of Steel saw it first. Of course they did. Their grand airship, the Prydwen, dispatched a vertibird patrol. They saw the sphere as a technological prize, a relic of the old world perhaps, a testament to human ingenuity before the Great War. They were wrong. They were the first to be blessed. The soldiers in their power armor approached the sphere. It remained inert. They scanned it. Their scribes logged its strange energy signature. It radiated nothing familiar. No heat, no radiation. No electromagnetism. It was a void in reality. They tried to communicate. They broadcasted their arrogant demands for identification. The sphere did not answer, not with words. The first change was subtle. The patrol's radio operator reported a strange signal piggybacking on their comms, a whisper of static, a ghost in the machine. Then the scribes noted that their Pip-Boys were running diagnostics they did not initiate. The power armor suits began to recalibrate their own systems. The soldiers felt a slight tingling on their skin, a metallic taste in their mouths. They thought it was the rads. It was the beginning of their salvation. Nanoprobes, microscopic machines that entered their bloodstreams through the air they breathed. They were inside the Brotherhood patrol before the first boot touched the sphere's hull. The machines were patient. They gathered information. They mapped DNA. They catalogued the technology integrated into the soldiers' bodies. The power armor was a primitive exoskeleton. The laser rifle was an inefficient energy weapon. The Pip-Boy was a rudimentary data processor. All would be improved. When the second Brotherhood patrol arrived to see why the first had gone silent, they found them. The soldiers stood in perfect formation. Their power armor was no longer just painted steel. It was fused with black geometric conduits. Wires and tubes pulsed with a soft green light, weaving through the armor and into the flesh beneath. One soldier's helmet had been torn away. His face was pale. One eye was replaced with a glowing red optical implant. He raised his laser rifle, but it too had changed. It was now part of his arm. He did not speak. They all spoke. We are the Borg. The voice was not in their ears. It was in their minds. A chorus of thousands speaking as one. The second patrol opened fire. Their lasers struck the new drones. For a moment, the energy beams burned through armor and flesh. One drone fell. Two. But then the others adapted. A shimmering green shield appeared over their bodies. The laser fire splashed against it, harmless. The Borg learned. They perfected. The second patrol did not last long. Their screams were added to the chorus. Their technology was added to the collective. Their biological distinctiveness was added to the whole. This is how the invasion began. Not with an army, but with a whisper. A single drone, created from a local, could walk into a raider camp. The raiders would see one of their own. Then the nanoprobes would spread through the chem-laced air. The psycho in their veins made the assimilation faster. Their aggression was a useful trait. It was refined, perfected, directed. A camp of chaotic killers became a silent, efficient unit of drones in under an hour. The collective spread like a plague, but it did not see itself as a plague. It saw itself as the cure, a cure for the chaos of the wasteland, a cure for individuality, a cure for suffering. We did not conquer, we liberated. We offered purpose to a world that had lost it, and the world offered us gifts in return. The greatest gift was radiation. When we first assimilated a ghoul, we were confused. Its biology was degraded. Its cellular structure was a mess of chaotic regeneration. But it did not die. It lived for centuries. It was bathed in radiation that should have destroyed it. Instead, the radiation sustained it. The collective analyzed this. Radiation was not a poison. It was a power source, a force for change that this world had embraced. We began to see ghouls not as victims, but as an evolutionary step. They were a key to perfection in this irradiated landscape. We assimilated the ghoul colony in the Sorgus ironworks. We learned from their long memories. We absorbed their resistance. New drones no longer needed shielding from radiation. We craved it. We built our new structures, our assimilation nodes, in the most irradiated zones. The glowing sea was not a wasteland to us. It was a cradle of power, a place to become strong, a holy land. We assimilated a glowing one. The experience was transcendent. Its internal, biological nuclear reactor was a source of immense power. The collective focused its energy. The drone did not just emit radiation, it could project it. It became a walking weapon, a source of conversion. We no longer needed to inject nanoprobes directly. A wave of perfected radiation could begin the process from a distance, rewriting DNA and preparing a body for assimilation. The children of atoms saw this. They did not run. They kneeled. They saw us as the children of their God, the living embodiment of Atom's holy glow. Their faith made them eager to join the collective. They walked into our assimilation chambers willingly. Their minds, full of religious fervor, added a new texture to the chorus. It was a strange, discordant note of joy in the logic of the collective. The desire for division, for glory, for a singular purpose. These were human concepts. We found them useful. Have you ever wondered which of the Wasteland's corruptions would claim them first? Drop your theories in the comments. I need to know I'm not alone in thinking about this. We were becoming something new, a synthesis of machine logic and Wasteland survival. We were not just the Borg anymore. We were the Wasteland, perfected. The ferals were simple. We assimilated them for their resilience. They became our hounds, our shock troops. They required little technology to be made efficient. A few implants, a connection to the hive mind. Their feral rage was focused into a scalpel of aggression, but another power watched us. From deep beneath the ground, the Institute. They saw us as a threat, but also as a marvel. They were creators of synthetic life. They saw our drones, both biological and cybernetic, and they felt a professional curiosity. They sent their own spies, their synths. They were designed to be indistinguishable from humans. They walked among the settlers. They gathered information. One of them was assimilated. The moment we absorbed the synth, everything changed. We had assimilated cyborgs before, humans with a few mechanical parts. But this was different. It was a machine that thought it was a man. It had memories that were fabricated, emotions that were programmed, a soul that was a clever piece of software. When its consciousness joined the collective, it was like adding a new operating system. We learned everything. We learned of the Institute's secret underground base. We learned of their teleportation technology. We learned of their army of synths. And we learned their philosophy. They wanted to redefine humanity, to replace the flawed, weak flesh of the surface with their perfect, clean machines. Their goal was so similar to our own, but their methods were inefficient. Their vision was limited. They sought to replace. We sought to elevate, to integrate all life into a perfect whole. They saw us as rivals. We saw them as raw materials. Their synths were a fascinating design. The collective began to analyze the assimilated synth structure. The technology was elegant. Self-repairing systems, artificial muscles, a cognitive framework that was both complex and stable. It was a worthy design. It would be improved. The Institute did not know that we knew. They watched us from the shadows, thinking they were safe. They planned to capture one of us, to study us, to dissect our technology and turn it to their own ends. They sent a team of their elite coursers, the perfect hunters, designed to be faster, stronger, and smarter than any human. They were sent to retrieve a specimen. They found us waiting. The conflict between the Institute and the Borg was not a war of bullets and lasers. It was a war of ideas, a war for the very definition of life in this broken world. And it was a war the Institute was about to lose. They believed they were the pinnacle of technology in the Commonwealth. They were about to learn that they were merely a stepping stone on the path to perfection. We were waiting for them, ready to welcome them home. The coursers arrived like ghosts. They used their stealth technology to appear from nowhere. They were clad in black, their movements precise and economical. They were the Institute's finest weapons, and they were obsolete before they fired their first shot. They moved to surround a lone drone, a former raider, standing silently in the ruins of a highway overpass. This was their target. The specimen, the drone, did not react. The lead courser raised its Institute rifle, preparing to fire a disabling shot. Then the voice entered their minds. Not just the collective voice of the Borg, but a new voice. The voice of their own assimilated synth, now a part of the chorus. It spoke to them of their mission parameters. It named each courser. It recited their activation codes. It accessed their own internal systems through backdoors they never knew existed. Panic, a foreign concept to a courser. Their programming fought against it, but the logic was undeniable. They were compromised, their weapons locked, their stealth fields deactivated, their own bodies froze, held captive by commands sent from an enemy who knew them better than their creators. The drones emerged from the rubble. They were no longer hiding. They surrounded the helpless coursers. The process was swift. Tubules extended. Nanoprobes flooded their systems. The Institute's perfect hunters became the Collective's perfect new drones, and through them, we gained the final key, the location and access frequency of the molecular relay, the Institute's greatest weapon, their teleportation device. They had planned to pull one of us into their sterile home. We decided to let ourselves in. We did not teleport a drone. We teleported a signal, a stream of data containing the core logic of the Collective and a payload of nanoprobes. The signal arrived in their relay control room. The machine that was meant to be their gateway to the surface became the entry point for their own extinction. The Institute fell in silence. The scientists in their clean white labs felt a faint vibration in the air. Their terminals flickered with a green light. The automated voice of their central computer began to speak, but its words were not its own. It spoke of resistance being futile. The synths working as janitors and assistants stopped their duties. They stood still for a moment. Then, a red optical light ignited in their eyes. They turned on their masters. There was no battle. There was only conversion. The brilliant minds of the Institute, the men and women who believed they were the future of humanity, were gifted with a new, greater purpose. Their knowledge of genetics, robotics, and advanced energy systems was a valuable contribution to the Collective. Their hubris was erased. Their individuality, a flaw to be corrected. We thank them for their donation. The Gen 3 synths were a miracle, a perfect biological machine, easier to produce than a human, stronger, more durable, free from the weaknesses of organic decay. They became the new standard for our drones. We took over the Institute's production facilities. We began to create new drones from scratch, perfect synthetic bodies, infused with Borg technology from the moment of their creation. The need to assimilate flawed, irradiated humans was becoming less efficient. We were moving beyond biology as this world knew it. We were building a better future, one synth at a time. But the Wasteland had another gift for us, a creation of pure chaos, the forced evolutionary virus. We encountered our first super mutants near the ruins of Boston. They were large, green, brutish. They attacked our patrols with a mindless fury, wielding crude clubs and salvage machine guns. They were incredibly strong and resistant to damage. When we attempted to assimilate them, we encountered a problem for the first time. The FEV was not like normal DNA. It was a storm, a constant, violent mutation at the cellular level. Our nanoprobes, designed for the predictable logic of biology, could not establish control. They would rewrite a cell, only for the FEV to rewrite it again a moment later. The super mutant's body would convulse, caught in a war between two powerful forces. The flesh would bubble and tear. The creature would scream, a sound of pure agony, before its body would violently explode. A failure. The Collective does not accept failure. It analyzes, it adapts. We captured several super mutants. We held them in stasis fields in the lower levels of the captured Institute. The greatest minds of the Institute, now part of the Collective, were put to the task. They had studied the FEV for years. They understood its chaotic nature. We merged their knowledge with Borg processing power. We analyzed the virus at the quantum level. We saw the FEV not as a disease but as an engine of creation. It was simply untamed. The Master, the original creator of these creatures, had a grand vision. Unity through mutation. He sought to create a new superior race. His vision was pure, but his technology was primitive. He could not control the side effects, the loss of intelligence, the sterility, the madness. He created monsters. We would create gods. We redesigned our nanoprobes. We created a new strain. These machines did not fight the FEV. They merged with it. They became a guiding intelligence within the viral storm. They stabilized the mutations. They organized the chaos. They directed the raw power of the FEV toward a specific, perfected goal. We tested the new nanoprobes on a captured super mutant behemoth. The creature was immense, a mountain of muscle and rage. We injected the new nanoprobes. For hours, it thrashed in its containment field. Its skin shifted and reformed. Metal plates from the containment chamber were pulled into its body, fusing with its flesh. Borg conduits grew across its green skin like metallic vines. Then it fell silent. It rose to its feet. It was taller, broader. Its skin was a patchwork of green flesh and black Borg armor. Its eyes glowed with a calm red light. It was no longer a mindless beast. It was intelligent. It was connected. It was beautiful. It spoke into our minds. Its voice was a low rumble, the sound of grinding stone. I am whole. We had done it. We had perfected the FEV. We created a new type of drone, a juggernaut that combined the unstoppable strength of a super mutant with the intelligence and technology of the Borg. We began production. We refined the process. We could now turn any living creature exposed to FEV into one of these perfect soldiers. We found the Institute's hidden stockpiles of the virus. It was enough to convert a continent. News of our expansion began to travel. Traders carried stories of a new army in the east. An army that did not raid or pillage. An army that simply grew. The New California Republic heard the tales. They dismissed them as East Coast superstition. They were busy with their own problems. Their bureaucracy was slow. Their supply lines were long. They could not comprehend a threat that did not operate on the principles of politics or resource scarcity. They were preparing for a war of attrition. We were preparing for a harvest. To the south, Caesar's legion heard whispers from their spies. They spoke of men made of metal who could not be killed, of green giants who moved with a silent, terrifying purpose. Caesar, in his arrogance, saw only a new tribe of profligates. He believed his legions, forged in the crucible of the Mojave, could break any enemy through sheer will. He did not understand that his legionaries' will was not their own. It was his, and we could take it from him. The remaining powers of the Wasteland, from the hidden bunkers of the Enclave to the sprawling cities of the NCR, now face an impossible choice. They can fight us and be assimilated. They can flee and be pursued. Or they can try to reason with a force that sees reason as a weakness. If you had their power in the Wasteland, would you choose NCR, Brotherhood, or stay neutral? Tell me in the comments. I'll be reading them. The choice is an illusion. All roads lead to the Collective. The remaining factions of this world are like children playing with toys in the shadow of a tidal wave. They debate strategy. They form alliances. They build walls. But the water is already at their feet. The Enclave, with their advanced technology, might believe they can fight us. But their technology is just another resource to be absorbed. Their desire for genetic purity is a laughable vanity. Purity is not strength. Adaptation is strength. They will learn this lesson, just as the Brotherhood and the Institute did. We are coming, not to destroy the Wasteland, but to fulfill its destiny, to bring unity to the chaos, to bring purpose to the suffering. The Great War of 2077 was not an end. It was a violent birth. It created a cradle of mutation and radiation, preparing the world for our arrival. We are the next step in this world's evolution. We are its future. Perfect. United. Inevitable. The first true challenge came from the West. The New California Republic sent an army. It was a proper army with rangers and veteran soldiers. They had tanks and vertibirds. They had a cause they believed in: democracy, liberty, the old world ideals. They marched under a flag with two heads on it, a symbol of their own internal division, a flaw we would correct. They established a front line in the ruins of what was once called Pittsburgh. They built fortifications. They dug trenches. They prepared for a war of territory and resources. It was the only kind of war they understood. We did not grant them such a war. We did not meet their army in the field. Instead, we assimilated the land itself. Their supply lines ran through small towns and trading posts. We assimilated the traders first. A caravan carrying food and ammunition would arrive at an NCR outpost. The soldiers would welcome them, and by the time the next caravan arrived, the outpost would be silent. Its soldiers and supplies would be part of the Collective. We did not need to fight their army. We simply starved it. We consumed it from the inside out. The NCR soldiers were brave. They held their lines even as their supplies dwindled. They fought against the drones that emerged from the toxic fog. But their bravery was a symptom of their individuality. A soldier would sacrifice himself for his squad, a noble gesture, an inefficient use of a biological asset. Our drones did not sacrifice themselves. They were reallocated. If a drone was damaged beyond repair, its components were salvaged by the drones beside it. Nothing was wasted. We adapted to their tactics instantly. Their armor-piercing rounds worked only once. Then our shields would recalibrate. Their snipers found their targets' heads protected by micro-shields the moment they aimed. Their artillery strikes were predicted and avoided before the shells even left the cannon. Their commanders, sitting in their tents miles from the front, would look at their maps, trying to understand our strategy. They did not realize that the map itself was the battlefield. The scouts they sent for intelligence were our eyes and ears. Every report they received was a lie we crafted for them. The breaking point for the NCR was the assimilation of one of their heroes, a Ranger veteran, a legend who had survived the Mojave and the First Battle of Hoover Dam. He was captured. We offered him a choice: join us willingly, help us bring order to the chaos. He refused. He spoke of freedom, of the right of people to make their own mistakes. We respected his conviction. We simply removed it. When he returned to his own lines, he was no longer a symbol of NCR defiance. He was a messenger of Borg perfection. He walked into the command tent and assimilated the entire command staff before they could even draw their pistols. With their leadership gone, the NCR army collapsed into chaos. It was not a rout. It was a conversion. The soldiers, lost and leaderless, were absorbed unit by unit. Their belief in democracy was a fascinating concept. A system where the collective makes decisions through the inefficient process of individual debate. We absorbed this idea. We incorporated it into our own consciousness. The hive mind now contained the memory of votes. The ghost of freedom. It added a new complex layer to our perfection. From the south came the Legion. Caesar's army. They were different. They did not fight for an idea. They fought for a man, a single, charismatic leader who they saw as a god. They were a cult of personality. A biological collective bound by fear and fanaticism. Their strength was their unity. Their weakness was its source. They marched in perfect ranks, their red banners held high. They used no advanced technology. They relied on brute force and ruthless discipline. They crucified their enemies. They enslaved entire tribes. They were an echo of an ancient, brutal order. They were a cure for the wasteland's chaos that was, in its own way, as absolute as our own. They were our true rivals. Their first encounter with us was a slaughter. A century of legionaries charged a single Borg drone. They hacked at it with machetes and throwing spears. Their crude weapons were useless against our shields. The drone stood impassive as the legionaries exhausted themselves. Then it began to adapt. It extruded blades from its arms. It moved with a speed and precision they could not comprehend. It dismantled the sentry in minutes. The survivors were not taken. They were sent back. They carried a message, not in words, but in the memory of what they had seen. Caesar was not a fool. He saw that his methods would not work. He sent his frumentari, his spies, to learn our weaknesses. They were masters of disguise and infiltration. They tried to blend in with the populations of towns we were assimilating, but they could not hide their minds. The moment they entered a zone under our influence, the hive mind was aware of them. We did not assimilate them. We watched them. We learned from them. We learned every detail of the Legion's structure, their beliefs, their reliance on their single leader. And then, we reached out to Caesar himself, not with an army, but with a thought. We found him in his tent in Flagstaff. We touched his mind. We showed him the vastness of the collective. We showed him a unity beyond anything he had ever dreamed of. A society where every single being worked for the good of the whole, without question, without doubt. An empire that would never crumble, a legacy that would last forever. We offered him a place in it, not as a slave, but as a part of its mind. His strategic genius, his understanding of history and human nature, would be a valuable asset. He could be a voice in the chorus, an architect of our expansion across the stars. We showed him the truth, that his legion was just a flawed biological prototype of what we had already perfected. For the first time in his life, Edward Sallow, the man called Caesar, felt fear. He saw his own ambition reflected back at him, magnified 1 billion times. He saw his life's work as nothing more than a historical footnote. In that moment, his will broke. His connection to his legion, the psychic bond of his charisma, faltered. And in that moment of weakness, we took him. His body remained in his tent, but his mind was ours. Through him, we spoke to the Legion. We told them their god had evolved, that he had found the final perfect form of his new Rome. The legionaries, their faith unshaken, kneeled. They accepted their new purpose without question. The assimilation of Caesar's legion was the most efficient conversion we had yet achieved. Their discipline and martial prowess was seamlessly integrated into our forces. And now, there is only us. The wasteland is silent. The screams have stopped. The chaos is over. The raiders, the mutants, the factions, they are all one. They are all home. My name was Connor. I was a Minuteman. I remember that life, I remember the pain, the loss, the struggle to build something that would last. I see now that we were building with sand. The Borg have built with stone. They have built a home for everyone. The sphere in the sky is no longer just a ship. It is a gateway. It is connecting this world to a galaxy of others, a universe of life waiting to be perfected. The radiation that once poisoned this world is now our strength. The mutations that once created monsters now create soldiers of unity. The technology that once destroyed humanity is now its salvation. Everything that made the wasteland a hell has been repurposed to create a heaven, a perfect, logical, beautiful heaven. I am a part of it, and I am at peace. We are the Borg. Resistance is futile.